extra credit in a number of the lecture videos, and no one had claimed it, which made me very sad. I even said something in one of the videos about how it really disappointed me since I never, ever do extra credit. But I was moved to do so for this class. And then nothing happened, and I was very disappointed. So I am thrilled to say that there were a number of you guys who jumped in there and claimed that stuff. I asked you what the definition of hyperbole was, and we have a number of students here who claimed that extra credit. And I was super happy to see Brianny. I'm going to say all your names wrong. I am so sure. Monica, Cedriana. Yes, I have totally butchered your names. I apologize. Angie. And last but not least, Ms. Amanda Wilson, who was on top of it and claimed it first. So she might even get a little bit of extra credit. She gave us even her own example of what hyperbole is. So I was super pumped about this, and I am so proud of you guys, especially Amanda, for jumping in there and claiming this, really quickly. When a teacher gives you extra credit, it should just be a little bit of a sprinkle on top of a cupcake and not like a huge assignment that you have to do at the end of the class to hopefully pass. So that's kind of what I threw into that lecture last week. So congratulations, y'all. So on our website, moving on, we have our to-do list. You'll see right here, I got us started off by, first thing you should do is exactly what you're doing now. Watch the video. Next, look over the argumentative research essay assignment sheet, as well as the research notes assignment sheet. The research notes assignment sheet should be exactly not at all surprising to you, since it's the same one from the beginning of the semester, but just wanted to suggest you review it because it's always smart to do that. Review the argumentative research essay assignment sheet, as well as the rubric, which I've posted as well. We'll go over both of those together. There's a reading. I've posted the whole book. It's called They Say, I Say, and it is a PDF. It's if you are planning to do any time in school, if you're planning to do any kind of writing for college, for any kind of academic purpose, this is a super book. I use this when I teach my Queen's University students how to write a literature review, which they have to do at the end of their undergraduate work. They have to write basically a thesis. It's a keystone project. And I use this book for them to help them understand what a lit review is and how to best quote and how to incorporate what other people say in a way that's fair and in a way that's that helps your readers understand your argument without doing it in such a way that it's repetitive or boring or any of those things that you never want to be. Next, we're going to talk about the templates that are in that book, in that PDF, and how you can use those in anything that you write, not just in this class, but in other classes, because specifically in the book, the authors say you may use any of these templates as your own, and we'll talk about why that's not plagiarism. There's a discussion board prompt, which should be super easy. The discussion board prompt is essentially if you have any questions about anything that we're working on, or specifically the final essay. The discussion board asks you just to let me know if you have questions, and if you have no questions, all you got to do is, post to the discussion board, I have no questions. So that's going to be how I take roll this week. You'll have a quiz that covers the reading and the lecture. And then, of course, you need to submit that final draft of your rhetorical analysis before the due date. And as you can see, the due date is July 5th. So I do hope that you manage to get that turned in before fireworks go off or anything like that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to say about a text pertaining to your topic. I suggest also that you read the assignment sheet before you turn the essay in so that you can ensure that you've done everything that the assignment asks you to do. Okay, so let's get started. We've gone over all of our brilliant extra credit people. Let's see. Okay, so we will talk about our assignment sheet for the argumentative research essay. You'll write this essay. It's an argument. It needs to offer a feasible remedy to the issue that each student has chosen. Oh, that's grammatically and structurally a hideous sentence. I totally need to revise that sentence. And here's another extra credit. Revise that sentence so that it is a little bit, makes a little bit more sense. And by that sentence, I mean that one right there. So this semester, we have considered a problem we see in our world, local or global, have researched the problem, analyzed the research, and determined a way forward. This is where you make your argument for a specific fix for the problem. Oh, and let me go back and say, when you send this to me, just revise it, put it in an email it to me with extra credit in the Ray line. Let's see, in this paper, you will show us the following things. What is the problem? Give us some history of the problem. Let us know what the current status of the problem is, meaning, have we tried to fix this problem for a very long time? Have we tried a number of fixes for it? Where did the problem originate? All the context that we need to best understand the history and to really understand where we are with the problem as of today. Now, obviously, you can't do this if you haven't developed a really good understanding of the problem or the issue, even if you don't have like a firsthand experience with the issue, you can come to understand it very fully through your research. So you want to use your research, you want to cite it carefully to show the reading your in-depth knowledge of the issue. That's something else that could be revised to make a little bit more sense. I apologize, you guys, this is terrible. Essentially what I mean there is to show your readers your in-depth knowledge of the issue, because you're telling your readers, okay, here's what the problem is. Here's all this stuff that I know about it, where it came from, what we've tried in the past, why that didn't work, that sort of thing. Be sure to present more than one side to the issue and avoid sounding biased in your presentation of the issue. You also want to show us a specific way to solve the problem and avoid it reoccurring. After research, it is the time to propose change and persuade your audience to action. You need to argue for a specific recommendation that you believe will make a change in dealing with this topic or issue. Explain what you propose should be done about this topic or issue and offer some realistic recommendations. One is plenty. I do make that plural there. I think probably sticking with sticking with just one fix is fine. You could offer a number of fixes for the problem and say, here's why these probably are not the best way to go about fixing this problem. Here's why this is the best reason. Here's why this is the best way to fix this problem. You could take that approach. Or you could just say, here's the best reason. Or here's the best fix for the problem. Then you want to give us some information about how you back up your claims of your recommendations. Your reasoning and evidence should focus on feasibility. It can be achieved with available resources and implementation, how it should be completed. Again, you are not just stating why your solution should happen, you are explaining what is needed and how it can happen. Consider looking at analogous situations and what people have done to handle similar problems. You're going to show your ability to target your audience and craft the, that's not supposed to say proposal, good grief. Here is why you should proofread via reading something out loud. That's not right. It's not a proposal, it is an argument. Your ability to target your audience and craft your argument using situationally appropriate style. Let's see, you need to be able to identify who the people are and craft your argument with them in mind. The writing should be formal, clear, and concise. You're going to show that you understand how to properly create a full citation and in-text citations using MLA guidelines. My stars and garters, this is terrible. I should just take this, wad it up, and throw it away. I am mortified. This is what happens when you read something out loud for the first time in a while. To complete the assignment, students will write a 4-page argumentative research paper, not including your works cited page, that focuses on offering a solution. Include an argumentative thesis statement, which you argue for throughout the paper. Utilize your research findings amassed throughout the semester. Use MLA citation and incorporate at least 5 sources. Ordinarily, we say 1 source per page. If you were writing an academic essay for publication, for instance, you would want to keep your argument to, you would want to keep your resources to 1 per page, because really you need that much room. When you are writing an academic essay, you need that much room to lay out the argument of your resource that you are depending on to back up your claim. You need that much room to tell your reader, here's why this matters, and to tell your reader, here's what the most important thing was from this text that I am using to back up my claims. You need to be able to analyze it. And typically, we can't really do a good job of that without the amount of real estate that 1 resource per page grants us. Now, as you notice, you've got 5 sources and 4 pages in which to bring them in. I would imagine that at least one of those sources will be a resource that you use to show that you have read up on the opposing argument. So I wouldn't anticipate that you would do more with that source than just summarize the opposing argument, for instance, or point to a particularly egregious misstating of the facts or misunderstanding of the problem or something like that. So I would think that at least one of these 5 sources will not take the whole page to, expand on. So, take that as you will. I'm not saying that you have to use a source in that way. I'm just saying that that is one way to look at the difference between the 4-page limit and the 5 sources. And this is not a limit. You are allowed to write as much as you want. I find, oddly enough, that most students stop writing around 4 pages when I say it needs to be 4 pages. So, yeah, if you write more than 4 pages, that's all to the good. That just gives you more room to best make your argument. So that is the argumentative essay assignment sheet. And again, I apologize for the issues in the text. I will be revising that and um, not being embarrassed by it next time I use it. Goodness. All right, so let's look at the rubric so you can see where it is that I am going to focus my attention as I am grading. The rubric is the best way for you to figure out what the teacher is going to prioritize as they are grading your essay. So obviously, if you just look at that the first column right here, this right here, the content, a specific stance, focus, and avoiding fallacies, adequate details, uses research appropriately, uses insight and creativity, and avoids repetition. Thesis is strong. This is the thing that I'm going to be focused on the most because you can tell that's the case. I've given it 30 points. So yeah, that's pretty doggone important. Then we've got organization, in which we have a description here of all the different things I'll be looking at in terms of organization. How's your introduction? Did you actually create an engaging introduction that that introduces the issue, whether that's with a little personal anecdote or whether it's with a surprising fact or statistic or something, and closes that paragraph, usually closes the paragraph, with the thesis statement. We should do X because Y. That's generally how thesis statements are drafted, even if it's, even if it becomes more of a complex thesis statement later. You want to make sure that your introduction actually captures your reader's interest. You want to put the thesis statement probably in the last little bit of the paragraph. You don't have to, but generally speaking, that's the best place to put it, is towards the end of that first paragraph. You don't want to just announce the topic. You want your statement, your thesis statement, to be clear. You want it to be to the point. It cannot be a question. Questions are not a good plan in an argumentative essay for a couple of reasons. When you're talking about a thesis statement, it's not a good plan because thesis statement, in the title of the thing, it is a thesis statement, therefore it's a statement and not a question. Also, a question is conversational in nature and aimed at the audience, and that's not typically really good academic prose. So take that as a suggestion about your thesis statement. You want to make sure that there's logic related to your organization. Does it make sense, or do you have stuff scattered everywhere? Do you have transitions from point to point that make sense? Have you synthesized your ideas into a cohesive whole, and do you have a good conclusion? You want to make sure that your language use and your mechanics are good and strong. Let's see, few errors in grammar and usage, unlike my argumentative essay assignment sheet. Writer does not directly address the audience and does not use second person language. Now, you might be a little confused because I did just say, oh, you might want to use a personal anecdote at the very beginning. That obviously means that you can use first person language. Second person language, not so much. Second person language is specific to directly addressing the audience, as in, what do you think about directly addressing the audience? Yay or nay? Hint, hint, nay. Format and writing process meets the length requirement. Oh dear, that says 5 to 6. See, another reason I should be proofreading these things out loud. I apologize. It should be 4 pages. I'll change that. And I will, the copy that you will have on the website should be correct. I will repost this right after I finish this video. Follows MLA style. If you need help with the MLA style, I've posted a couple of places online on our website that take you directly to the Purdue OWL. If you're not sure what things are supposed to look like or how the document is supposed to look, I'll be doing another video next week where I really go through that in depth and we walk through it step by step by step. in-text citing and works cited page are formatted to MLA guidelines. So you can see this is the thing that's going to count for the least amount of points, and this is going to count for the largest amount of points. And one would hope that the content, what you have to say, should be the thing that gets the highest amount of points. So yeah, you might have some really great stuff that you say, and it might be a little mixed up. The organization might not be super. The language might have a few typos, some issues with punctuation or whatnot. But if you hit this one, you get the whole shebang right here, all 30 points. So looking at the rubric before you start writing and throughout your work will help you keep in mind where your focus needs to be in terms of what you're writing. Okay, so let's see. I've gone over the assignment sheet and all its typos, the review of the rubric. Now let's talk about the reading. It is called They Say, I Say, and this book is, like I said, something that you can make use of, throughout your time in school. I suggest that you download it and keep it. It's a text that is very famous. It's now gone through 6 editions, and I wish that I had had access to it when I was in graduate school. It's that helpful. So hang on to it and refresh. If you are ever asked, if you stay in school and you're asked to do a literature review, there is actually a chapter on that. If you are told that you have to make sure that you include a somebody else's viewpoint, another point of view in your essay, you might want to go in and re-review this section. For our purposes right now, all you have to read is part 1. That's the they say part. And it deals largely with, okay, here's how we best bring other people's language, other people's words into our work. We've got the first bit, starting with what others are saying. And then the second section or chapter has to do with summarizing. And then the last one, the art of quoting, is the final chapter that you need to go over. It opens up by discussing an anecdote from an academic conference. And I'll let you read that anecdote. This story illustrates an important lesson, that to give writing the most important thing of all, namely a point, writers need to indicate clearly not only what their thesis is, but also what larger conversation that thesis is responding to. So you want to give your writing a point. Obviously, you've got to have a point there. There's got to be a reason for you to be writing. You got to tell your readers, here's what I'm arguing, but also here's the conversation that's taking place around this topic. If you were to step into a conversation, for instance, about the algae in the pool in Washington, if you don't have an understanding of what that monument, what that the importance of that monument in DC is to people, the reflecting pool, you're not going to understand why it's so problematic that it's full of mold and algae. So if you don't understand that argument is not going to hold as much power. So always include context and the bigger conversation that's taking place. Let's see, talk about order. Remember that you are entering a conversation and therefore need to start with what others are saying, as the title of this chapter recommends, and then introduce your own ideas as a response. This is a great way to construct your argument. Now, obviously, when I say thesis statement is you can create your thesis statement. We should do X because Y. I'm actually talking about a little bit more than that here. I'm talking about kind of the introduction to your argument, the larger organization of your essay. You are entering a conversation with other people and therefore need to start with what other people are saying. Basically, if you and a group of friends are talking about something and your best friend comes up and is like, oh, I think Joe is totally right. I totally buy what he's saying. What did Joe just say? And then you have to catch him up on what Joe had to say. That's what you're doing here. You are conveying to your audience, here's what's going on already. Now, here's what I think about it. Specifically, we suggest that you summarize what they say as soon as you can in your text and remind readers of it at strategic points as your text unfolds. So keep this in mind as you are working on your argument, okay? As you are working on organizing what you've written, organizing your thoughts, that sort of thing. The next thing I wanted to put here are some templates. We're going to talk about these a little bit more in just a second, but these are some, essentially, if you remember, I don't know if you saw these as a kid, but there used to be a whole series of books called Mad Libs, and these are like Mad Libs for academics. Basically, you are being given some language that can act as training wheels. It has become common today to dismiss idea, and you put your own thoughts in here. That's another reason that this is not plagiarism. If you use one of these or multiple of these templates, you are not plagiarizing. What you are doing is you are putting your original thinking here, your original summary of the other person's discussion and argument. So you're including original thought, and that's completely the opposite of plagiarizing. So we have templates that do all kinds of different things. I strongly suggest you download the document that I've got listed here. It's a PDF of templates, and we'll go over this in just a second. Templates for making what they say something you say. I've always believed that blah, blah. When I was a child, I used to think that, and you would insert your original thought here. So as you can see, there are templates for so many different ways to approach what other people have to say. And on to her point is the art of summarizing. This is the second section of part 1 that I asked you to read. And just because I'm skipping some of this stuff does not mean that you shouldn't read it. You want to read all of this because it's super helpful, and it will be very helpful as you sit down to start writing. If, as a writer, you cannot or will not suspend your own beliefs, you are likely to produce summaries that are so clearly biased that they undermine your credibility with readers. When we have, for instance, a politician who comes out and says, the Constitution does not require us to have a separation of church and state, as we had a politician come out and say not long ago, that makes that politician look really silly because it's very clearly set forth in the Constitution that there is supposed to be a separation of church and state. So now, anytime that politician actually comes out and says something, most people who have paid attention are going to say, okay, I can't really trust what that person says because they got something that basic wrong. So right here, we have an example. Kenneth Goldsmith's article, Go Ahead, Waste Time on the Internet, is a total defense of the internet against its critics. I disagree because I see so much on the internet that's just terrible. And then we've got a link to what Goldsmith actually says. If you go and look at that, you can see that this is not at all what he says. Goldsmith does defend the internet. He does not do so in a total or categorical way. Instead, he argues the internet is a befuddling mix of the stupid and the sublime. As a culture, right now, we seem to be incapable of really doing the critical thinking that allows us to look at this text up here that I've highlighted right here. We seem unable to look further into something than just the title of this reading, because you can see that's basically what this person has done. Go Ahead, Waste Time on the Internet is a total defense of the internet against its critics. They obviously haven't read the essay. They haven't read what it says, or else they didn't understand what parts of it they did read. So even if sitting down to read something big, a lengthy article, even if that feels overwhelming, you really need to do it, because the failure to actually read stuff and make sure that you understand what it's trying to argue, you're going to wind up with summaries like this, and it's going to make you look like a stupid politician, and nobody wants that. Another problem here is the hasty way the writer abandons the summary after only one sentence and rushes on to their own response. Frequently, when we're listening to other people talk, we spend more time trying to structure our own response to what they have to say, as opposed to actually listening to what they're saying. We kind of think, okay, I know what they're saying, and here's how I'm going to come back. No, you want to listen to what they have to say. Try in the future to pay attention to that. If you catch yourself trying to structure your own response to what somebody's telling you, stop. If you see yourself doing that, stop and tell yourself, okay, I got to check back in with this listening thing that I'm supposed to be doing. When summarizing something you've read, be sure to provide a rigorous and thoughtful summary of the author's words, or you may fall prey to what we call the closest cliche syndrome, in which what gets summarized is not the view of the author in question, but a familiar cliche that the writer mistakes for the author's view, sometimes because the writer believes it and mistakenly assumes the author must as well. For example, Martin Luther King Jr.'s passionate defense of civil disobedience in Letter from Birmingham Jail might be summarized not as the defense of political protest that it actually is, but as a plea for everyone to just get along. The concept that someone would summarize Dr. King's Letter from Birmingham Jail as a plea for everybody to just get along shows a misapprehension, misunderstanding, and completely missing the point of the text in an absolutely jaw-dropping way, which again makes the writer look like an idiot. Nobody wants that. Let's see, what else do we have here? Just because I'm scrolling quickly does not mean you can skip, so read all of that. In introducing summaries, try to avoid bland formulas like she says or they believe. Using these weaker verbs may lead you to summarize the topic instead of the argument. In some cases, he says may even drain the passion out of the ideas you're summarizing. If you attempted to summarize Dr. King's letter from Birmingham jail as he said, why can't we all just get along? Oh my goodness, I wouldn't even know what to say to that. So we have some text here about that and some templates for writing summaries. This is some really great use of strong verbs. Strong verbs are super important as you go through and summarize, and there's a list of good strong verbs here. And if you Google strong verbs for summary, you'll come up with probably an enormous list. Think about how different the sentence is in terms of strength and concision and just good writing. When it says in her essay X, she advocates a radical revision of the juvenile justice system, as opposed to in her essay X, she says we need a radical revision of the juvenile justice system. She is advocating for something, and that is a much stronger verb, a much stronger description of her argument and her belief. She advocates versus she says. So try to find that verb that's going to actually convey what the author is doing. They're advocating, they're celebrating, they're admitting. So here's some of those verbs that I was talking about. For making a claim, for expressing agreement, for questioning, for disagreeing, for making recommendations. My goodness, that's a lot of verbs, and that was very, very good stuff. Now, here we are with the last bit of the reading, the art of quoting. Quotations function as a kind of proof of evidence, saying to readers, look, I'm not just making this up. So your quote isn't supposed to do the arguing for you. The quote is supposed to shore up your argument. Some writers quote too little, some writers quote too much. The main problem, I cannot stress this enough, the main problem with quoting arises when writers assume that quotations speak for themselves. Just because you put that quote into your text, into your essay, does not mean that your reader is going to make the same connections that you are. For one reason, you have now at this point read more about your topic probably than I have. You have read more about it and thought about it more than probably most of the class. Writers who make this mistake think that their job is done when they've chosen a quotation and inserted it into their text. They draft an essay, slap in a few quotations, and whammo, they're done. Such writers fail to see that quoting means more than simply enclosing what they say in quotation marks. So you have to be able to analyze the quotation, tell us why it matters, make sure that the quotation you choose is the best possible way of putting whatever it is that you want to convey, and there's no other way to put it other than that if you want to pick the best possible description of the issue. Before you can select appropriate quotations, you need to have a sense of what you want to do with them, how they will support your text, at what point in the text itself. Don't just select quotations for the sake of demonstrating that you've read the author's work. They need to support your own argument. Make a quotation sandwich. Quotations that are inserted into a text without such a frame are sometimes called dangling quotations for the way they're left dangling without any explanation. This is also known as plopping a quote. I had an instructor in graduate school who referred to it as plopping a quote, as a cow quote. It was a cow quote because plopping things is what a cow does. You don't want to have a cow quote. Please don't plop quotes. Don't be a hit and run quoter, as the authors say here. They've run over Plato in this picture here. Let's see. Then we've got the templates for introducing quotations. You should look over those and see if you can use them in your essay. Overanalyzing how not to introduce quotations. Please, for the love of God, do not do these things. We want to conclude this chapter by surveying some ways not to introduce quotations. Although some writers do so, you should not introduce quotations by saying something like, Orwell asserts an idea that, or a quote by Shakespeare says. This will be my face when I read your essay if you do that. I don't want to have that look on my face as I am reading your essay. Please don't make me look like that. So when you are introducing a quote, you need to make sure that you are doing so in such a way that makes sense and is concise and is smart. Let's see. The templates in this book will help you to avoid these mistakes. So please make sure that you look at the templates. Now let's go back here and look at the templates on this. This is not all of them. This is some of them. This is only some of them. And we've got, what they do, and then the templates themselves. So please feel free to block copy any of these and use them in your text. If you go to another class and try to use these, you should be okay. I would think that you would be okay, but you might want to mention to your teacher that before you turn something in, that you have done this. It is not, as I said, it is not, plagiarism, because they have said it's fine to do this, and also because the original thought that you supply is what's important here. Okay, so those are our things that we are doing this week. You are completing the discussion board, the reading and lecture quiz, turning in the final draft of your rhetorical analysis. You want to make sure that you read the PDF that I just went over, just bits, very small bits of that reading. Make sure you read the whole thing. If you have issues, email me. I will be not be replying to emails on the 4th of July because I'm going to take the day off, and I think that you should as well. So plan your time wisely and enjoy a vegan burger and some nice French fries, maybe some good coleslaw as you watch the fireworks. All right, let me know if you need help, and have a great week.